So I live in America, which is a country that is very tip heavy. Certain jobs, certain things, you just always knew you had to tip. You go to a restaurant, you have to tip. Driver, tip. Pizza delivery, tip. It's extended a bit. Now Starbucks is expecting you to tip, and but here's what I'm here to say. I agree with Mr. Pink. I think tipping is bullshit. I do it, and I'm a good tipper because I've worked in the industry for most of my life. However, I don't agree with it in principle. I don't agree with it because, not that the person doesn't deserve to be tipped, I don't like the fact that companies have found a nice loophole not to pay their employees. Like, isn't that convenient? I worked at a casino, multiple casinos, for about 15 years, and I was a dealer, which is one of the worst jobs you could ever have. It really is. There's a reason that every dealer you've ever met knows what the term burnout means, because you reach a point where you're just like, I can't stand this fucking job. No one would ever do it for what casinos pay you, because they pay you $5 an hour. But we do it because the tips are good, right? But what a convenient loophole for the casino, who basically makes their money by stealing it from addicted gamblers with rigged games. And they have realized, like, hey, this is the best thing ever, because our dealers, we are tipped. Our bartenders and waitresses are tipped. Our valets tipped. Even our slot attendants work on tips. So we don't have to pay anyone anything. We'll let the customers who we're ripping off pay our employees as well. And then we'll still complain at the end of the month when we've made $30 million that we're not making enough and we got to do layoffs. Hey, listen, we got to lay you off. This $5 an hour we're paying you is just too steep. So I don't like that. I don't like that companies get away with not paying their employees because this tipping system has come into place. I like the places. I'm not a fan of California, but I do like the minimum wage and then tips on top of that. Hey, that's fine with me. I'm all about that. But where I live in Illinois, that's not how it is. I don't even know how they get away with not paying minimum wage. Because my entire life, it's always been about half of what minimum wage is what they pay you. And then they tell you, oh, you get tips. Except for, why does the customer have to pay me my salary? I don't like it. I do not like it. Europe doesn't do it. In fact, when you're a waiter, you see somebody who's foreign and you're like, I'm not going to get tipped. The foreign casinos, they don't work on tips. In fact, if you ever want to check out a good movie called Croupier, dealers in Europe, they are paid a good amount of money to deal as fast and as accurately as possible because the casino wants to make as much money as possible. They don't give a shit about the customers at all. In fact, they're the enemy. You're trying to take money from us. We've employed these safeguards called employees. We pay them really well, but they're going to make sure you don't steal. They're going to make sure that you lose. They can't make sure you lose, but they'll deal as fast as possible, which will in turn guarantee that you lose. The other thing I don't like about tipping, it's probably my least favorite, is it forces me to have negative feelings towards people who have no requirement to pay me my salary. And yet, because I've already accepted that they have to tip me, I get mad when they don't. Or I get mad if the tip isn't good enough, which kind of makes me an asshole. The amount of times I've had conversations with other employees like, oh, that guy, yeah, he never fucking tips. Fuck that guy. And you become angry at somebody for something that they have no requirement to do for you, but you've just automatically assumed that they have to. And then you hate them accordingly, which isn't just... when I worked at the casino, did I mention I worked at the casino? There were people that I knew wouldn't tip, and I secretly was hoping they would lose all their money. That's not right, especially if it was a high roller. There are certain people who, let's say maybe some prominent basketball players, possibly the best of all time, who never ever tipped, and you can bet you're not rooting for them to win. You want them to fucking lose. And you've already decided they're a bad person because they don't tip, which in some ways they are, because they know they should. But then technically, why should they have to pay me? So once again, I agree with Mr. Pink. I'll still tip because I'm sucked in the system and now I can't get out. Because I don't want to be the guy that everyone talks about. Like, oh yeah, Dave Dravnak, that fucker never tips. He has some reason for it. He doesn't want to let the companies get away with not paying us. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on tipping. Anyway, if you want to sign up for my Patreon page, it's at daviddravnak.patreon.com/crap.